Hey, Karen. Hello, Japji. I'm a little behind today. I got carried away with my pictures. You'll see in a bit. And they don't even look that great. Hey there. Uh, a little more frazzled tonight, and I don't know why. I thought last week I was frazzled. So as we get started, I am just realizing I need to log into this one. Okay, because this is how we're sharing the links. So 1 second, we're gonna switch back. Welcome. Uh, barely, Sharon. I've barely been able to break out. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're having a great evening. We are going to start momentarily. Just let us know if you've ever done an escape room. Thanks for telling us where you're from. I never ask. I know that's terrible. So we're just going to drop in the breakout that I worked on yesterday. Just to get us started, to start exploring, if you will. So you don't need an app. We'll be using Google tonight. I know sometimes people want 2 devices just to watch the YouTube. That's really up to you. Type and talk, obviously, tonight. So I didn't think this through, and the fact that if I take off the screen, I can't send you the links. So it's just going to be a minute here so we can show you the example. We're going to look at different options tonight, just because I think when we look at the different breakouts, there's different ways of doing it and exploring. So this was when I worked on last night, taking the idea of a lot of the rooms I've seen with the Bitmoji and using that as a, take out of trash, please do not. There we go. As I move things to the trash. This should be an interesting night, folks. This is a good time to remind everybody, these are our messy, authentic learning moments. So they really are messy. Okay, I'm gonna drop this. It's the ugliest link I've seen. Hopefully you're able to link it or copy and paste it if you wanna take a look. So we were really taking that idea of the Bitmoji room and using that as our escape spot. Cool. So I actually got started with educational breakouts with Breakout EDU. I know a lot of people have done the breakout boxes, like you mentioned, Vicki. But yeah, as we went along, we wanted some things that were fine-tuned, or we found not enough kids had access to the box, or sometimes we wanted kids to make their own breakouts. So that's really where I started playing with digital breakouts. Some of the stuff I saw online wasn't, I was confused, and it was supposed to be for grade 2, so I was a little worried. So there's little things I've looked at. I love using them with adults, just if we're doing learning as a learning community. If we're reviewing things, it's a great way to kind of have fun with it instead of us just listening to somebody present the same information. So awesome. Lots of folks that are new to it. Hey, Matt. Nice to see everybody. The messy link worked well. Awesome. So if you want to take a look, again, just scroll up through the comments. I dropped the link. Maybe I'll drop it down here again, just in case you're missing it. So tonight we're going to focus on one of the pieces that's kind of essential for a digital breakout, which is the Google form and how we can set up the Google form. Like we said, we'll talk about all 3 parts. I'll show you a couple different ideas. And yeah, super excited. I just have to message a couple of people and put it out on Twitter. So keep introducing yourselves, keep sharing, check out the link, and we'll start momentarily. And I'm gonna have some more Coca-Cola. Thanks for jumping in, Mel. Like we said, when I first was introduced, it was all a site and a Google form. Google Form's kind of the common denominator, no matter what format people use. But yeah, lots of different options. We're going to look through some today. I also still have some questions in my mind. So I have those for us at the end too. You probably will have your own questions that you're wondering about as well that we can chat about. So just trying to capture a few folks that I couldn't. And I'm missing somebody. Hopefully everybody got in. If anybody has a better strategy for keeping track of who's joining us, I was considering a Google form where people could just say if they wanted a reminder every week, just to kind of try to keep that organized. But yeah, I'm up for suggestions. I don't know if every week is too much for folks. If you want a week off in between, it's all up to you guys. Okay. I didn't forget anybody this time, I think, hopefully. So if you're new to Appy Hour, hopefully everybody can hear me all right. If you're new to Appy Hour, just log into your YouTube account, same as your Google account, and it will let you chat along the side so we can have a conversation. As we go through, usually what we do is we take some time to pause, to check in, just to kind of see how everyone's doing, if they have questions, if you have comments. I know some people are brand new to digital escape rooms. Some people have tried them out. Some people have tried out the physical breakout EDU kits, and that's awesome as well. I love doing that with kids. And the digital piece was something that just came out of necessity for me. And I found it was kind of cool with digital escape rooms because we could share them. So it became much more shareable that way. But in this climate, it seems like a perfect way to entice kids to maybe challenge each other to explore. So thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. This again, we're going to come back to our disclaimer, Sharon. And Michelle, I don't know if I may have missed Michelle. We call this messy and authentic learning. It's not very pretty, but it's how learning is, right? It's always messy and authentic. So hopefully the flow will work out and we'll be able to figure it out. I have a phone call coming somehow. How is that possible? Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna get started if that's all right with everybody. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Yeah, we definitely need a pick-me-up at this point in time. So hopefully this kind of does that for you. Okay, so keep introducing yourselves. We're gonna just go over a couple little pieces here tonight. So tonight we're looking at digital escape rooms. Like we said, they're kind of building on that idea that we see that are popular about escape rooms where you have to solve the clues to get out in the limited amount of time that you have. So Breakout EDU, which is I'm trying to think what the right word is a professional kit with many different games, including digital options. So they're one way that concept was brought into classrooms of taking that idea of breaking out of a room and turning it into breaking out of a box. At the same time, people started exploring about how they could make their own, and some great folks online, and I wish I could remember who it was that I found back in the day. They started looking at how we could do it with the tools we have available. So the person that I tapped into was using Google Forms. And there's settings that we often don't see in Google Forms. So it really was a cool way of kind of exploring those different options. So tonight, our goals are really to look at what a digital escape room looks like, and we're going to walk you through the 3 parts of a digital escape room. Those people that have experience, feel free to add as we go along, because I'm by no means an expert. We're going to look at different ways of putting those 3 parts together, and one of the reasons I loved digital escape rooms tonight is it kind of builds on all the other things we've done for Appy Hour. So we can bring in Apple Clips or Adobe Spark for that first part. We can be bringing in the choice grid elements we learned about with transparent shapes or clickable shapes, those curated resources. So it kind of taps into everything we've been exploring. We're going to look at some tips and tools, but we're going to really spend most of our night looking at Google Forms and how we can create those locks in Google Forms. And then at the end, maybe talk through just what does this look like? How can we kind of run it in our environments? I have a couple questions that are really stuck in my mind. And I'd love to get your feedback on it. So, like we said, a lot of people have used them in different ways. The first way that I kind of got started was using it with students. And I'm just going to pull up Google Sites. Sorry, I usually have all my tabs ready. There we go. So one of the main ways that I really started playing with it was looking at how I could take the fun that we were having with kids with the breakout boxes into staff meetings. So for us, we often would have to talk about our vision document, which I love talking about. Those people that know me know I will do it forever and ever. I can always talk about it. But the hard part is some people have heard the conversation before, some people haven't, and we just wanted to have that common understanding. So for us, instead of me doing another spiel, we actually put folks in groups and had them do the digital breakout. So every time you look at a digital breakout, there's always that story piece, which can be done in different ways. There's the clues. And I actually did clues in a Google slide. The hint that you know it's a Google slide is that little toolbar at the bottom. And then we use the Google form for our locks. So taking the same thing as the physical locks they would have, letter locks, number locks, direction locks, color locks, using those same concepts as the locks for them to break out. Originally, I didn't have them side by side. And then I realized a lot of times they needed the clues to put the answers into the form. I still don't love the side-by-side idea necessarily, and you're going to see that kind of evolve in the other idea that we've been exploring. So staff is a great way to get started if you're wanting to share resources with staff, if you're wanting to review something, review items with parents, a fun way to even set up some family learning for them to explore. I think the other thing I love about breakouts is that idea of using it as a review, using it as team building. So for mine here, this is the one I took way too much time doing. Way too much time. So again, building on what we learned a couple weeks ago with choice grids with transparent shapes or linking shapes, as well as what folks have been exploring with their Bitmoji classrooms and Bitmoji ideas. I've actually linked everything into the page so that the clues are actually hanging it on the page. I don't know if you can see that, but once you scroll over, there's a little hand, and then that would take you to the clue, and then this clue takes you to the scratch code, and you'd have to look inside the code to find those 3-digit numbers. I don't know if it's obvious that the person, my little Bitmoji, would always take you back. And the other thing you can see is, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. I remembered yesterday you could hide slides, so they can't see the clues without clicking on them. Now, to make it a bit easier for my story, I actually recorded a little audio bit. I think I would have rather put a video in now that I look at it again. But this, when I looked back to this felt a little intimidating. So I also was playing around with the idea of just doing it in a form. So if I had my friends in grade 2 or grade 3 and it's their first time, maybe we haven't used a ton of slides, and I'm worried it's just going to be a bit too much for them. I was wondering, could we just do it in forms as one simple way to get them started? And again, looking at that idea of really just fostering the language they would need within an inquiry. So looking at grade 2, when we look at communities around the world, there's a lot around exploring what homes look like and what areas look like based on where they are on maps. So I want to spend most of my inquiry time involved in that wondering in that conversation, but I also know that those map skills and that vocabulary is something that I want them to bring in. So for this, and I'm just going to go to the eye so you could see what students would see, I was thinking, how could we use the digital escape room really as a way to spark that conversation? So with no slides, just in Google Forms, I use the picture option in Google Forms, and this is very sad. Those that know me know I like things to look very pretty, and it wasn't perfect. So I'm trying to let it go, but that's okay. So I have some different, 3 different clues that focus on some of that vocabulary that I want them to be using. So our cardinal directions, and I've actually just put a little link in to a resource that they could watch. So if we have reviewed this before, maybe they missed that lesson, maybe we're assuming they picked it up from the year before, but we don't know for sure. That little resource could be a way for them to explore the content. So even if this was new learning for them, I've now broken down those 3 things I want them to explore and turned it into a game. So a great way to kind of explore. The one thing I did miss here is I can't embed audio or video just from my Google Drive, but I did like that I could use my read-write tools to support the reading. So if students are familiar with that, that could be a tool to support the navigation and the exploration. So how does the form work? So the form actually has it set that there's one set answer. And I forgot to change this form. So let me show you that. There we go. So each of my questions is required. I have to do that or else they can jump through the hoops and they don't need to answer all the questions. So I have to make my questions required. And don't worry, we're going to come back to that and we're going to walk you step by step in how to do it. And one of the little tricks is on the bottom, we have these little 3 dots and we can actually have a response validation. The response validation means that they have to say what we want them to say. So this is actually west, not north anymore. The other thing is I have to put in an alternative message. So to give you the experience, this isn't as fun when you're not doing it. So I'll have to see if I can pop it over that way some. So as we're watching, hopefully this is helpful just to show you the experience before we get into it. And just a note, I could put a video here that kind of talks about the clues. We could do it live, and then I just have the form for some of my friends that couldn't make the live session. But when I go to do my answer, of course, I don't want it to say that I have it wrong. So if I put in north here as a wrong answer, and submit. Notice how I get these little red error messages? Because if I push submit without that little prompt, it would give them the answer. So there's kind of those 2 pieces of putting in one set answer, but then also being able to put this little reminder message. That's kind of the trick with Google Forms that allows us to really turn this tool that we often use for assessment into a lock kind of experience. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions so far? This is a lot more pre-talking than we usually do. So again, our digital escape room would need story, a backstory, and how we share that story is really up to us, whether it's an Apple clip, whether it's an Adobe Spark, whether we record our voice or we just type something up. There's clues, and like we saw, we could put clues in as a Google slide with that transparent shape, which is what we're going to try out. We could create that room. We could put clues in just an image, like you saw in the Google form. And then all different formats will always end with that lock in a Google form. So what we want to do for the next little while is just walk you through creating the locks in Google Forms. You can follow and just do exactly what I'm doing, or you can try your own clues, or you can just mess about. But yeah, Forms is one of those tools. A lot of us are already using it, so it makes sense to kind of play with it. The kids are also used to it, so it kind of has that fun feature that it's a new piece they haven't explored. But Forms also makes it a great way to use the structure to support students in sharing their learning this way. So think even about early societies and how we often are exploring just some other research on anything. Habitats could work. And getting them to create those games that their friends could play. So a great way for them to apply the learning and not just regurgitate it. They have to kind of think of what they're going to be doing it with. And I like with Forms that it really could just be 3 quick clues, or you could have 5. I've never done more than 5 because I find nobody lasts that long. If your guys are better or if you're good. But yeah, after about clue 4, my attention span starts going. Okay, so let's walk through. I'll show you the transparent shapes in slides just to show you, just to review how we can put a transparent shape on, and also how we can hide the slides. We're not going to spend a long time on that just because we want to all get to the forms and all play with the forms, if that's okay. If there's any other questions, drop them in. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. Okay, let's get started here. I'm just going to go make myself a new presentation. I like the idea of one place. That's why I was playing with the Bitmoji room of having the form right there. But I think it's a lot of playing back and forth. I like the site option when we were doing it as a group. But I was trying to think of how students would interact when they're at home. I'm just going to change the layout. Now, I cheated a little bit and already made my clue slides on my iPad. So I'm going to just drop those pictures in. So I loved doing the Bitmoji room. And I think that's the hardest part of everything we're doing right now, right? It's always about maximizing your time. I know some of us today were talking about how it can feel overwhelming when you're trying to do it all in this time, trying to balance home and trying to balance the new learning. So really, you have to choose what works best for you. For me, I find it's faster sometimes just to take that picture and to do the hyperlinks on the picture. I also like the look. It's kind of my style. But you have to do what works for you. I loved also setting up the Bitmoji. It just took a long time because I kept wanting to find that perfect fit. So that's going to be my trigger image. I probably would put my video in the bottom. So now I have, like I said, I have my slides already ready. So I'm actually going to see if I can upload a bunch at once. Probably not. Oh, I don't need to upload them. I have them in my drive. And I feel terrible because all of the choice group people, I told you there was no way to just show one slide. And this last night I had one of those aha moments that I could hide slides. Has anybody hid slides before? I love when those ahas come back to you and you're like, how did I forget that? So I was going with this whole theme. This is where I got carried away after work today. Thinking about photography. So this breakout is to teach some of the basic concepts of photography. There's a lot of photography that I want them to actually do it, but a lot of times in photography, we also talk about vocabulary again that I want them to know, but I want them to learn it in a fun way. So this looks at exposure, focus, zoom, and the rule of thirds. So again, there's kind of those different pieces or different terminology. I just thought this would be something that others wouldn't have created, so we could use it again. So I'm just getting all my slides in. Again, if I share this, they're going to be able to see all my clues, and I don't really want them to do that. So one of the tricks with Google Slides, and it's helpful anytime you're doing work or a choice grid. Like I said, I can't believe I told somebody they couldn't do this. I'm sorry if you're the person. But if you right click on any slide, you can actually skip the slide in presentation. It's still going to stay in your slides. They just won't be able to see it when they go to present. So they'll be hidden from their view. Now, again, for me to link, because I want it to be a page that they go explore, each of the objects in my picture actually link to one of the slides. So I would use my transparent shapes, and I would put a shape. And again, I'm going to the little fill bucket, and I'd make it transparent. And I go to my line and make it transparent. And then I would just link that to the slide. So if I right click, I can go to link. I know some people prefer using the link option on the top. And now I have to figure out that slide 5 because the letters are going to my rule of thirds. And don't forget to say apply. I've done that about 100 times lately. Again, just to show you, so I would take my shape. And this kind of, I feel like this gives it that digital escape room. Same with the Bitmoji. So if you're really going for that feel, it kind of hides the clues around, does still some of that searching. I do feel you would need to give kids that back piece in their story. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to show you 1 second. So exposure is slide 2. We're going to apply. Jennifer, don't let me forget, because I'm going to show you what the difference is in 1 minute when we go to present. And I'm only doing that for the clue slides because I don't want them to see the clues. It would be too easy if they could just click next, next, next. But one thing that Melanie and I discovered was if you don't have a back button, it's a little, you can't get home. So I'm just going to make sure I have a little arrow back that goes to the first slide. And for me, just to make it a little easier, I usually link that first shape and I make sure it goes to slide, the first slide, apply, and I'm going to copy and paste it to every slide. So I just don't have to keep doing it because I'm lazy. All right. So Jennifer, why skip the slides? So when I go to present and when I publish this to the students, I don't want them to be able to see the other slides. So notice that they can't, I can see them, but they won't be able to see them. So they won't be able to switch between the slides. They'll only see this home slide. They'll still be able to click though. So when they go to exposure, they'll still see exposure and be able to go back, but they can't just click through all of the clues. Does that make sense? So that's just one way that we can create that clue page, but we're going to go to Google Form and just embed the pictures there to go a little simpler. So it looks like the skip slide feature was a new option for a lot of folks. And there's so many pieces to Google Slides that really is interactive. And I think we often look at slide tools as just a presentation option, but there's so many pieces with our slide tools, whether it's PowerPoint, Keynote, or Google Slides, that really are great design features and that allow us to create some of those interactive experiences and engagement with material. So any of those kind of learning journals or interactives are really possible. Okay, let's move over to Google Forms so we can all set up those locks and see how those work. Now I'm going to just embed the pictures just to show you how that's possible. Yeah, I took the pictures today. And Cassandra, I'm really, so this is when I tell people I have issues. I feel like it's a confessional, Cassandra. So I actually took both pictures. I took the picture of the back of the notebook. I wish I could reach over and go grab it. And I took the front picture, but I love taking pictures. And for me, it's my chill moment. You could definitely go to Unsplash and find an image. The Bitmoji was just regular pictures that was there. So Jennifer, yeah, I'm skipping every slide that has a clue. Does that make sense? Because I don't want them to see the clues. So I'm going to skip every slide that has a clue on it. Yeah, skip slide. So let me just show you. So I'm going to go to publish. And we did this when we did choice grids, right? We published the presentation. So I get a link that becomes a view link for my students. I'm just going to go to an incognito window, a window that doesn't have my account logged in. That's how I kind of test how students will see it. And then as I go through, they aren't playing through, but they can click through and go back, if that helps. So a great question. With Google Forms, we won't necessarily know who they are. So there's a couple options. We could put a question at the top that asks them for their name before they break out so that we can see all of their different attempts. I don't know if you want all of that data. So the other option would be, if you're using Google Classroom, for them to submit after they've done the breakout, or to have a password at the end of the Google form. I'm going to show you how you can enter a message that they made it through. So you could have a special code there or a special word that they have to tell you, a sentence they have to type in, just so that you know that they broke out and they got all the answers. Michelle, when I was thinking of this one for photography, I was debating having a slide just with a video that kind of sets the stage, and then when they go to the next slide, all of the clues will be there. So that's what I was thinking. I was just trying to think too how to engage them. If I was doing this in a classroom, that story piece kind of brings the excitement, and I don't know if just typing it out would be exciting enough. So I was thinking of an Apple clip or an Adobe Spark video, kind of maybe enticing them a little bit. I'm not a good drama person, so I can bring that drama more with Apple clips. But if somebody's into drama, it just may be a selfie video. But yeah, what I did do on the other one with the Big Escape, when you click on this, and hopefully nobody's going to hear it, the story is an actual little soundtrack that I put right on the page. But I think with the photography one, I would want to just pause for a minute. And I don't know what you felt. I think the story is more important in these digital experiences where we're fully online, because we're not there in person to kind of just give them that stage, set the stage, or to give them those hints that maybe we'd do face to face. So that's why that's still one of the questions that I'm kind of pondering. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, and the back button, I've set it to go back to the first slide. So it would always go back to that clue page. Okay, let's go back to Google Form. we can start simple there. Just know that you can make it fancier if you like. I can make a couple videos too if there's little pieces that we want to kind of tackle. Okay, so if you want to follow along, that's great. If you're more of a watch and see, it's up to your learning style. We usually try to space it. Woo! I'm having some Coca-Cola. We try to pace it so that if you have those questions as they're coming up, we can go in there. Okay, so I'm going to review just a little bit. So there's many ways we can, remember, we're just going to recap because I think we're trying to, I knew this would probably be a two-parter. So we're trying to squish everything in. So when we look at a digital escape room, we need that story piece. So like we've talked about, that story could be a slide at the beginning of your game that explains, or at the beginning of the form. It could be a video. It could be an audio clip. The next thing we need to do is we need to share our clues. Now, I could share my clues in a room I compose on Google Slides. I could share I could just put my clues right in a Google site. I like using real pictures. So this escape room is all about breaking code. This escape room is around photography basics. Photography secrets probably sounds cooler than basics. So it's just two different ways that you can set up that escape room, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to folks? Awesome. So that third way, just to keep it simple, because sometimes we see really complex things, and sometimes the simplest way can get us started faster. So Google Forms could hold all of our clues as well. They just won't be as interactive. So it's just deciding where your starting point is, if you're really comfortable with Google Slides already, if your students are really comfortable with Google Slides, or whether you just want to play around in Google Forms first. So in Google Forms, I'm going to make a new blank form. Jennifer, you can play it at the end. And we're going to call this Photography Secrets again. So I'm going to just give my form a title. So a lot of the tools we're going to be using for setting up, I know what I did today. I didn't turn off my devices. There's more devices connecting to Wi-Fi. Simple is good. That's it, Lisa, right? I know that's the hardest part right now is where the hardest part is there's lots of ways of doing it. Okay, so we showed you all the complicated ways. We're gonna backpedal a little bit and we're gonna start with the easiest way to create a digital breakout, just in Google Forms. So if you wanna follow along, make sure you have a Google form ready. We're gonna set it up so that all three parts of our digital escape room, our story, our clues, and our locks will be held in that Google form. So if the other parts was confusing, we can make some clips to explain how the pieces come together. And we'll share all three of the different breakouts if you didn't get a chance to check them out earlier. They're up in the feed, but we'll share them again as well. So Joanna, we always use the locks in Google Forms to do so that it holds the answers. There's different ways of putting them in. So the answers that I did for photography were actually just all hidden in the image or hidden in a link. With a Bitmoji, it was things that were hyperlinked. But let's start with the simple way. All right, so if you're following along, do you have a Google form open? Google Forms would just be one of the tools that you have available through your little waffle. If you haven't used Forms before, it's just a survey tool. There's different options with Google Forms. It's such a powerful tool. It doesn't have a lot of design possibilities, but yeah, lots of possibilities to move from there. Okay, so I'm going to set mine up for photography secrets. While people are joining, I have that little painter's palette so I can make it a little more exciting. So I want this to feel like photography, so I'm going to see if I can get something. Actually, I could upload my own picture again. So I can bring in, just have to find that first picture. There we go. I won't be able to put the whole image in. It always does a bit of a banner, but I can have my nice personalized image to kind of set the tone. So I have my picture, I have the title. That next piece, that first piece, is to set the story. So I'm going to say, I went to visit. My storytelling is not as good. So Jennifer, I'm sure you could create something much more compelling. I'm just trying to set the tone of why they have to break out. I went to visit my favorite photographer for a lesson, but they were nowhere to be found. They left their notebook though with clues to help us take the best shots. So we're just setting, we're just kind of setting that stage with the story. So it's just in that beginning piece. Unfortunately, you can't embed a lot of links. You can't bring in a video from YouTube if you're comfortable with doing your story in YouTube, or you could drop the link to something like an Adobe Spark, especially for younger learners if you want to kind of get that excitement or to explain how the rest of the document would work. The form is definitely the home base. It's definitely that piece that's going to hold all of your locks. I think if you're not familiar with digital escape rooms or haven't played with them yet, it's a great place to start to hold those three parts. And then as you want to get more complex, you can always move into some of the other tools. So again, no matter what, no matter how you want to do a digital escape room, your locks are always in forms, because forms is a thing that we can control and kind of hold onto. Yeah, I just used, you could use any tool to create your pictures. I use Keynote on my iPad just so I could doodle. But yeah, it's up to you how you kind of prep those pieces. Okay, so remember we had three pieces. We had our story. The next piece is our clue, and then we need to do our lock. So I'm going to call this question clue 1, and I'm going to call it exposure. Probably isn't the best thing to type for middle schoolers, but that's all right. Now, I don't want this to be a multiple choice question. I want this to be a short answer, and you'll see that in a minute. The other thing is I want this to have my picture, because my picture has all the details in it. So I'm going to go to the image icon right here beside my question, because it will allow me to add a picture to this clue. And now I may just change it up to whatever clue I find. Oh, I did get exposure. Check that out. So to me, this isn't enough, because some of my friends maybe can't see the picture. Some of them may need that text to speech support. So I'm actually going to go here on the bottom and click on the 3 dots and go to description. This way I can give some tips. I can type in the question as well, just so they have that feedback. So clue 1 is exposure. And I'm going to tell them what kind of question it is. So I'm going to say directions. And that's just one of the type of locks we often see on a physical lock or breakout kit where you have up arrows and down arrows. I picked the worst possible clue to do first. Sorry. We'll keep doing more clues, so if it's tricky this first time, we can add some more details. So use the note on the side to figure out the 4 directions to break this lock. U for up, R for right, D for down. Oh no, exposure is never perfect. Can you help the photographer adjust the exposure? So I'm happy with that. I could always fine tune it. Now comes the answer part. So if I left this just like this, kids could put anything in, and I need it to feel like a lock. So I need it to be that they can't get through this unless they have the right answer. This isn't a number, this is text. And notice the next option says contains. So this is how I can kind of control how that answer comes. So I'm just looking overexposed, it's down, down, right, up. So I'm gonna see D, D, R, U, because it's down, down, right, up. Again, if I don't put anything at the end of that, when they put in the wrong answer, they're just gonna get the right answer, and that's no fun. So I have to put a little custom text in there. So I'm gonna say, oops, if they get it wrong. Try again. Remember just first letters and all capitals. So it gives it some of that drama, just like if you were figuring out locks on a lock, that you have to kind of get it just right. Remember to make it required so that they have to answer that question, and then you can make your next clue. Okay, so coming back to the questions, and then we'll do the next one. So yeah, so when you're sharing a Google slide, if you share it as view only, they won't be able to edit anything. So you have to decide how interactive you want those clues to be. And there's outside tools you could use. There's puzzle websites. There's lots of different things out there that you can kind of tap into to make more interactive clues, especially for the little ones. So yeah, so we're looking at putting everything in forms right now. So this is very much a static clue. It's not necessarily as interactive, but again, it's a great place to start. If you're just starting out, it's one home base. You can see if the kids like it before you invest a lot of time in it. It's also a great way to start with students. So if students are creating it, it's a way for them to kind of explore. Now, if I wanted to, I could put, so this, maybe I want them to get a little learning out of this. I want them to remember how to shoot on iPhone, exposure. So I know Apple has quick little video clips. So I could go grab that link and drop it in. It won't look pretty. So if you're wanting something a little more clean, if you're wanting something that's a little more advanced, you could always hyperlink that in some really cool slides. But again, I really think starting simple is a great way to go. Okay, I'm going to show you the question again. We're going to go to the next one if that's okay. And we're going to do it all over again, Lisa, so we can talk about that answer part. Yep, if you started in slides and just hyperlink to form at the end, and that's definitely possible. Okay, so I'm going to use my plus sign to make a new question. And I'm going to say clue number 2 here. And we're going to say Zoom. The question type is a short answer. And then I'm going to, again, use that little picture icon to go get my picture. I can use my Google Drive so I can see it this time. We said Zoom, right? This is the one thing I find with breakouts. It's a lot of planning ahead of time to make it lots of fun. So you can kind of see a lot of this piece was done before. So I'm going to leave out the description just so I can show you the answer part here at the bottom. So see at the bottom it says short answer type. Now, one of ours is going to be a number. We'll do that next. But this one's going to be a text. I want the next piece to say contains. And this word's going to be Zoom. Now, again, I want to make sure I enter custom text, because if not, the form will tell them the answer. And that blows us. It blows the whole cover. So I'm going to say, not quite. Did you use capitals? Just to give them that reminder. I don't want them to have to sit there thinking they got the word wrong if it's just, did you use all capitals? And that would be something I would give in my instructions to make sure that goes along. I'm going to do one more and then drop your questions in as we go along. I'll show you how to do the number one, which is exactly the same. So we're going to do the plus sign. I do my clue number 3. And this is focus. And I go grab my picture. I was very proud of myself on this one, figuring out how to make it. This is what I also find with breakouts. You think something's really cool and sometimes the kids don't think it's as cool. Or the clue you thought would be super simple was the one that they got stuck on. So always find a friend to play the game. Jay Wigmore and I would always play each other's games because he would find things that I didn't think of, and it kind of just really helped us out. So again, it's a short answer question. On the bottom, if I click on the 3 dots, I want to make sure response validation is on so that I can enter the details. So this one is a number. I'm taking the numbers on the back of the shirts. So they have to put the word in order, TAP, and then they have to use the numbers, which is 4, 11, 10. Is equal to 4, 11, 10. And then in my custom error text, so close. Try again. Number ones, kids always seem to figure out that they can just use the digits and reorganize them. But yeah, it's one of those pieces. I'm gonna make sure it's required because again, if not, they could get through without answering. And that's kind of how that works. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. So when you're planning out your breakout, I say start with your plan. What's your story? What are your clues going to be? And what is the lock going to be that unleashes that clue? As you're going through, think about your learners. Think about your what their experiences are with digital tools. Think about what their experiences are with breakouts. If you've done one in person, I think they probably know some of the different pieces. If you've never done a breakout together before, you're going to have to decide what's the best home base for your digital escape room. So if you're just starting, I say put them in forms and keep the clues simpler. I know it's not as exciting as an interactive slide, but it would give you guys all an experience in that environment. If you're more comfortable or you want to dive right in because you're really comfortable with Google Slides, you could put your clues in Google Slides. And like with the Big Escape, you're going to see because I had that really busy room, because I had all of the clues in the room, my Google form just literally has the type of lock and a space for them to type the answer. So I haven't put any of my clues or details in here because I've put it all into my space. So it's really up to you whether you decide, I'm not ready for that yet. I want to put all of my clues in one spot in the form, or you can decide, yeah, I'm ready. I want to make that really interactive room. Then your form could be simpler and just be the holder of the locks. Antoinette, I don't know if you could do a multiple choice. You can't put a multiple choice as the right question. Let's try that. Because that'd be a great option for younger friends too. If I have my multiple choice, oh, see, I don't have the option to do answer validation. So it can't be a locked option. There is a quiz option that has that allows me to do that. Checkboxes has response validation. And I can select exactly. So that would be the way around it. So with checkbox, we're going to say this is a test. Option 1 is wrong, right? Select exactly. Oh, but they have to select the number. So that's not going to work either. Yeah, so it looks like it has to be a typed in answer. Sorry. Yeah, so we need that answer validation to be able to also give that little message if they don't get it right that first time. So as much as I can have that quiz feel, they're going to get the answers if I do a quiz, so they wouldn't have that lock feeling. Yeah, and remember with your multiple choice, you could have some different options in your form or have some different options in an image. So there's ways of kind of feeling that multiple choice option out without using the multiple choice type of question. Oh, great idea to use it with simple machines. Okay, so do we feel okay with the question and how the question works? And if you guys want a video, I can do, we can make a little video of how to create a lock in Google Forms. Yeah, I think to me that's, I want that lock feeling because it feels like that escape room. So if you're using Google Forms, what I did in this situation where I use Google Slides, Ilinka, is I actually say in my story part at the beginning to look for the 4 clues. They know there's 4 locks. I should have visually done 4 locks. They know there's 4 locks and they have to find 4 clues and then to go to the Google form when they're done. So I put that as part of the story part so that it's clear for them there. Now, like we showed earlier, if you wanted to, a Google site is a great way to do it. I like kind of Michelle's idea though too, with a slide at the beginning that has the instructions, and then the next slide having the clues, and then you could have a next slide that goes to the form. So it's really up to you how you think your kids would be good at walking through it. And yeah, Michelle, that's why I think the video is a great way to kind of start it off, especially since we're not there with them. As much as I've done digital escape rooms, it's usually, I've always been able to talk to the person somehow. So I think that video would really set the stage. Okay, there's one more thing in the form that's important though, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier. So in the form right now, I've done the questions. And we're going to come back to your question, Sarah, so don't let me. Sarah and Elizabeth, what I'll do is I'll make a little sketch note for tomorrow, and we'll share some of those different types of locks. But really, you can make it anything you want. I was really stressing out trying to do direction locks and trying to do color locks. And I realized for little guys, words are probably the easiest kind of locks. and numbers, and it's okay if it's just word and number locks. Took me a long time to let go of that though, because I know there's all these different types. If you want to invest digital Breakout EDU's digital format, they have online tools that let you create their locks or use their locks. You can always see if they have a free one to play around with, or we have 3 that we'll be sharing that you can try out yourself or with your students just to check it out. But remember how before, when we started, we wanted to put a message at the end. Because if they do break out, we want to congratulate them, right? Just like if they broke out of the kit, they get kind of the sign. So we want to give them that message. So in your setting wheel in Google Forms, if you go to presentation, actually in general, I'm going to take that off. That's not just for Peel. And presentation, I'm going to take off that they can submit another. I don't need them to submit it again if they got all the right answers, because they won't, it will let them submit again if they don't get the right answers. I then have that option to do a confirmation message. So I can say, congratulations, you made it. You found all the clues. We can apply our learning on our photo walks this week. Remember how we talked about how would you know that they made it through? Send Missita a note with the special password tap focus for a special certificate. So that's one way that you can kind of check for understanding if you wanted to. But you could also put it in as a form question in Google Classroom and have them submit once they do the answer. The secret message just makes it more exciting. Did anybody want me to show you that again of how you can put your confirmation message in? I can't believe it's 8 o'clock already. Oh my goodness. We probably should have done this in a 2-parter. This has probably been the most frantic Appy hour so far. It's an awesome concept. It builds a lot on a lot of things we've already been exploring, the interactive slides, the videos, the images. It kind of brings it into one activity. And like folks mentioned earlier tonight, it's kind of that time in this whole process where we're starting to, our energy levels are starting to die down. So it's definitely a great way to kind of get excited, even tap into some of that content that you see is missing. So instead of just, if the mini lessons aren't working and you're trying to remix or you're trying to review something that you've done earlier in the year, I think it's a great way to bring that in. Lucia, you can definitely put a link at the end. So you're going to see that with the other breakouts, and I'll post them all in the chat, all in our messages tonight, and I'll post them also to the post on Twitter if you want to try them out. So in your little presentation option here, you could put a link at the end if you did want to have a little celebratory message. So we can definitely come back and make little video clips on any of the pieces we talked about tonight. But yeah, there's so many different pieces we can explore. So as we come to a close, I know our time's coming up, and I'll stick around for questions. I guess for me, the big piece was, how does this work with littles, especially really littles? So I was wondering about even the idea of using slides and our clues just as a starting point, and then being able to share the digital piece for those kids that couldn't join the synchronous session, or thinking about family challenges, just a way to help families understand some of the learning as well. And to me, one of the coolest parts about breakouts was kids working together. But that almost made me think it would be a great synchronous debrief session for kids to kind of share what clues they got, what they didn't, or setting them up in small groups in Google Classroom so they could discuss what clues they found or what clues they didn't. The engagement piece, engagement is the $1 million question we're all dealing with, isn't it? I think that's why you have to try to also design clues that would meet their interests. So today I was thinking about data management, and I don't know, I was thinking about the raptors, but how using, like I know a lot of them battle out who's the GOAT, who's the greatest of all time. So using some of those infographics to deconstruct data management, tapping, so the clues are specifically something that they're passionate about. Thought that picking those clues and knowing our learners is always going to be the piece that will kind of entice them a little bit more. If you're stuck finding some of those resources, that's why it's always easier to do these things as a group. Mel actually looked at all of the ones I was creating today, and we chatted through some different pieces. So I think that's the other piece, is having a friend, having a colleague. You can always send a message, and if I have anything, I can send it along. But yeah, I think it's also thinking outside the box. To me, as I was doing this, playing the last couple days, I was thinking of my sister-in-law trying to help my nephew with algebra, which I know it's a higher end piece. But how long ago it was that we did algebra? So setting something up as a family, especially like the mapping, where there's a little resource for each question, so that you have that family learning together, I think could be a great opportunity if families have that privilege of time. So thank you guys for hanging out. This was a little more fast-paced. To those breaking fast, have a wonderful dinner with family and checking in on voice ed. For the next couple Appy hours, we talked about sketchnoting. That's a little calmer. That's still on the table. If you want to look, I feel like Google Forms, we've probably done a lot of the advanced stuff. We could look at Google Sites. I had this crazy idea of maybe looking into what it would look like if we did a Appy hour outside. So if we did do a photo walk, I don't know if that's possible with YouTube Live, but we could try it out. Claire, to your point with the little ones, I feel it definitely would need to be visual, and I think the video and the audio pieces would be key to kind of make that learning work. So thank you so much for joining us. If you need to head out, if you have more questions, if you have comments, if you have suggestions for the next Appy hour, drop them into the comment section. Thank you for giving up your Wednesday nights. And if you guys are game, I will put out a little Google form. So if you are interested in reminders every Wednesday, we won't do this forever, I promise. But maybe to the first or second week of June, we'll do it weekly, and then we can revisit and see what people want it to look like later on. And yeah, we'll still always put the survey out on Sunday so that you can vote on what you would like to look at. And then on Monday, we announce the winner, and then we start taking those reminder notices. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Vicky, the Bitmoji classroom is there's different people that have some videos about it. How about I do this? I think what I'll do for all of us is I'll create a little Wakelet. Wakelet's just a way I can curate, and I'll put the sample breakouts in it. We'll put a little sketch note with some of the different types of blocks, and then I'll put the video. There's lots of people that have made videos about how to do the Bitmoji classroom, so I'll drop one of those in as well. It's a little tedious. It's a lot of looking for pictures and then just layering them. That's why my room looks kind of basic. I saw a lot of them on Twitter today that made me feel like I need to step up my Bitmoji classroom game. Yeah, this is definitely one of those ones, like compared to Adobe Spark or Apple Clips, it does take a little bit of thinking. And you kind of have to see where it fits best with what you're learning and with your learners. But yeah, it's a fun one, especially when you're trying to make content exciting. To me, the power really too is in getting kids to create their own over time, if it's a format that works for everybody. Adventure teaching. We're starting a new phrase, Sharon. Karen, this is also a good time to say, when we do these Appy hours, you don't have to do them all. So sometimes we come to an Appy hour and there's something new you learned, like that you can hide the slides. And if the breakouts doesn't fit your practice right now, that's okay. And when it's the right time, it will pop to mind. And that's a good time to say these are all, we put all of the Appy hours on YouTube. So we have a little playlist going. So you can always check them back when it fits your learning. No, Allison, it's completely fine. So with Google Forms, a lot of the hard part is that those locks become letters. So your color locks, you use the first letter for each color. For your arrow locks, again, you use the words for those locks. So if your kids are really familiar with them, the downside though for me is that you have to be really particular about putting those instructions in your Google form, just so that they know. No matter where your clue is, whether it's in a slide or in the form, you have to be very specific about what those options are. Yeah, the Appy hours from previous weeks are available. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Last week, we also had a family Appy hour, so all ages are always welcome. But last week's was in particular focused on the little ones. Not focused on the little ones. It was, we planned it keeping that all ages in mind. So we went straight into creating, and it was a bit more hands-on. They're all active, but it was more hands-on materials. So I just dropped the playlist in the comments, Lindsay, if that helps. Yeah, Allison, because visually you're trying to think of those breakout type of locks, but yeah, you're kind of just giving that description. Now, if you created and Allison, I know you're pretty techy and probably have played with these tools before. So if you really wanted to, you could even create a little visual in your form. If your clues are on a slide, you could have a little visual that looks like that lock if it helped your friends too, just if they're used to it. Thank you guys for joining. Again, we'll stay on a little longer. We'll edit all of these pieces out, the front piece and the end piece, and then we'll bring it all together. We'll post it on the playlist so that you can get access to it. Tracy, this one, I feel bad because all the other ones have been nice, easy entry points. And today we stretched the brain a little. Even my brain was stretched. I wanted to show everybody that there's different ways of doing it. But I know for next time I have to rethink that a little bit, how I set that up. Thank you guys for joining. Again, I'll curate those different pieces together so that you can play around with the different breakouts, because if you've never done them, really playing with them will give you a feel for them, feel for the different types, and then remember that those 3 parts. Yes, Jennifer, you can just close YouTube. Thank you guys for hanging out. Again, if you have suggestions for next week's Appy Hour, if you're like, Tina, I just need a break, feel free to DM me that. It's a fun way I love hanging out on Wednesday night. So yeah, so when I publish to web, I always make sure to check that off because I don't want it rotating between slides. So that's a great question. So when I publish to web, I always make sure that that option is that the two boxes aren't checked. It shouldn't put it on to auto advance by default. It will only do that when I start pushing play. So as long as it doesn't start slideshow as soon as the player loads, you should be good. All right, sketchnoting. Sorry if this was your first one. The other ones, make sure to check out the other ones too. It was an active evening. So sketchnoting sounds good. I have to see if we can do these YouTube lives outside. All right, friends. Thank you again so much for hanging out. Thank you for coming. We're going to end the broadcast now. Again, we'll tidy this up. We'll curate some of those different breakout examples so that you can play with them, and curate some of those resources we talked about in one spot for you. And we'll pass it along in the morning. Thank you guys so much. If you have any suggestions, again, let us know. And then next week, we can vote on next week's Appy Hour. Okay, have a great night, friends.